What if I told you that in the late 1990s, the internet felt like pure magic, and any company with .com in its name suddenly became worth billions of dollars, even if it had no real customers, no profits, and sometimes no actual product at all, and that normal everyday people quit their jobs, borrowed money, and poured their life savings into these tech stocks, because it felt like anyone could get rich overnight, only to watch everything collapse in 2000. When the bubble burst, the market crashed, almost 80%, thousands of companies died, and regular families lost their savings and their jobs in waves, while the early founders and big investors who sold at the peak walked away as billionaires. Yeah, you heard that right. The dot-com bubble was one of the wildest and most unfair financial manias in modern history, and it left behind a trail of broken dreams, anger, and a very clear lesson that still matters today. If you have ever felt that sting of watching something that seemed like a sure thing turn into nothing, or if you have ever wondered why it always feels like the big players win while the rest of us pay the price, then buckle up, because today we are ripping open the dot-com bubble. Explained simply, the verified insanity of how hype and easy money turned the internet into the most dangerous speculative asset of its time, the self-destructive spiral that destroyed lives and companies overnight, and the deeper unfair truth that the early insiders got rich while ordinary people got left holding the bag. Stick with me until the very last word, because the documented prices that reached insane levels, the normal people who mortgaged their future for tech stocks, the overnight crash that wiped out trillions, and the chilling parallels to the bubbles we see today will leave you equal parts fascinated and furious at how history keeps repeating the same painful pattern. If you have ever felt the pain of a bubble popping, or you want to understand why these manias keep happening, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, so you never miss these deep dives, and drop a comment below telling me which modern bubble you think is the next .com in disguise. Crypto, NFTs, AI stocks, or something else entirely. I read every single comment, and we are building this conversation together as a community that refuses to let history repeat itself without learning the lesson. Welcome to Money's Hidden Past. Rich people lied. We fact-checked. Let us travel back to the late 1990s when the internet was still brand new and it felt like pure magic. For the first time in history, people could connect with anyone, anywhere, instantly share information, buy things online, and access knowledge that used to be locked away in libraries. This new technology created an excitement that was hard to describe. It felt like the future had arrived early, and anyone smart enough to ride the wave could become rich beyond their wildest dreams. Companies started popping up everywhere with names ending in .com, and investors threw money at them like there was no tomorrow. The belief was simple. The internet was going to change everything, so any company connected to it must be worth a fortune, even if it had no profits, no customers, and sometimes no real business plan at all. This was the birth of the dot-com bubble, and it would become one of the most dramatic and unfair financial manias in modern history. The frenzy started slowly, but quickly turned into pure insanity. Normal, everyday people who had never invested before suddenly quit their jobs, borrowed money against their homes, and poured their life savings into tech stocks. They did this because it felt like the rules had changed. Traditional companies with real products and real profits were suddenly seen as boring and old-fashioned. The hot new thing was anything with .com in the name. Pets.com, a company that sold pet supplies online, went public, and its stock price soared, even though it had almost no customers and was losing money on every sale. Other examples were even more extreme. Companies with no revenue at all were valued at billions of dollars simply because they had a website and a catchy name. The Nasdaq Stock Exchange, which was full of tech companies, rose more than 400% in just a few years. It felt like anyone could get rich overnight. Taxi drivers were giving stock tips, grandmothers were buying shares in internet startups. The whole country was gripped by a collective delusion that the internet would make traditional business rules obsolete and that the upward spiral would never end. The sarcastic tragedy that makes this story so heartbreaking is how completely normal people got caught in the madness. This was not just rich speculators playing games. Entire middle-class families mortgaged their homes, borrowed from friends, and liquidated their savings because they believed the hype that one lucky tech stock would set them up for life. The market became so frenzied that companies with no profits and no real plan were trading at prices that made no sense. People were buying and selling stocks based purely on hope and the belief that this time it was different. The greed was so intense that social norms broke down. Friends were fighting over hot stock tips, families were taking out second mortgages to buy more shares. The entire economy became distorted as capital that should have gone into real businesses, and innovation poured instead into this digital casino. And then in the year 2000, the bubble popped. No one knows exactly what triggered the final panic, but suddenly buyers disappeared. The Nasdaq crashed almost 80% in a matter of months. Companies that had been worth billions were suddenly worthless. Thousands of dot-com businesses died overnight. People who had borrowed huge sums to buy at the peak were suddenly bankrupt with no way to repay their debts. Fortunes vanished in weeks. Families that had sold everything for tech stocks found themselves broke and in debt. The crash did not just destroy wealth, it shattered lives and trust in the entire financial system. The immediate aftermath was devastating, and it marked one of the clearest examples in history of how a speculative bubble can destroy an economy. Unemployment rose sharply as thousands of internet companies laid off workers or shut down completely. Retirement accounts that people had spent lifetimes building lost huge portions of their value. The economy slid into a recession that lasted for years. For many middle-class families, the dot-com bubble was not just a bad investment. It was the day their dreams of financial security died. They had done everything right, worked hard, saved, invested in what everyone said was the future, and in a short time, the future took it all away. The emotional toll was enormous. People felt betrayed, angry, and helpless. Many never fully recovered financially or emotionally. This was the moment when millions of regular people learned the painful truth that the market does not care about you when the big players decide to pull the plug. But here's the part that should make your blood boil even today. While regular families were losing everything, the early founders and big investors, the so-called tech gods who got in early, had already sold their shares at the peak. They walked away as billionaires. Companies like Cisco, Yahoo, and Amazon had insiders who cashed out at the top while the public was still buying. Venture capitalists and hedge funds who funded these companies made enormous profits on the way up and got out before the crash. The same banks and investment firms that had hyped the bubble and earned huge fees from the initial public offerings survived the crash relatively unscathed. They quickly recovered and, in many cases, grew even larger. Almost no one at the top faced real consequences. The system protected the powerful, while the little guy got left holding the bag. This is the cold, unfair reality that still defines how bubbles work. The insiders win on the way up and get out before the fall. The regular people who buy at the peak lose everything. The energetic parallel that should send chills down your spine is how little has changed in the decades since. The same human madness repeats with every new asset class. The housing bubble of 2008 saw people mortgaging homes to buy properties they could not afford. The crypto and NFT frenzy of recent years had people selling everything to buy digital coins and pictures with no intrinsic value. In each case, the pattern is identical easy credit herd mentality, and the belief that this time it is different. Prices explode based on hype, not fundamentals. Then confidence cracks and the crash wipes out the latecomers while the early insiders who sold at the peak walk away rich. The dot-com bubble was not the first, and it was definitely not the last. Every bubble since has followed the same script because human nature has not changed. Greed, fear, and the desperate desire for easy wealth are as powerful today as they were in the late 1990s. The deeper lesson that makes this story so important is that bubbles are not caused by technology or the internet or crypto. They are caused by the same psychological forces that live inside all of us. When prices rise fast enough, people stop asking what something is worth and start asking only how much more it will be worth tomorrow. Easy credit lowers the pain of risk so more people pile in. Herd mentality turns rational individuals into a stampede. When the music stops, the ones left holding the bags are the ones who lose everything. The dot-com bubble proved that a speculative bubble can form around literally anything, as long as enough people believe the price can only go up. One simple idea. The internet one crashed the same human madness that repeats every few decades. The difference today is that the scale is global, and the consequences reach into every retirement account, every mortgage, and every family budget on the planet. The energetic reality check is that we are not smarter than the people who lived through the dot-com bubble. We have better technology, better data, and better regulations, yet we keep falling for the same trap. The crash of 2000 did not end speculation. It simply taught future generations how to do it bigger and faster. Every modern bubble carries the DNA of the dot-com era because the underlying forces are identical. The only real protection is remembering the lesson that value is not determined by hype or crowd belief, but by fundamentals and sustainable use. When something is priced based purely on the greater fool theory, the crash is not a matter of if, but when. The dot-com bubble was one of the clearest warnings in modern history, and we have ignored that warning at our own peril. The mature recognition here is that the dot-com bubble was never really about the internet. It was about human nature, the dangerous cocktail of greed, easy credit, and collective delusion that turns ordinary ideas into financial weapons of mass destruction. The people who lived through it learned the hard way that when prices detach completely from reality, the fall is swift and merciless. We are still learning the same lesson today, only the stakes are higher and the crashes are global. The next time you see an asset class exploding in value with no underlying fundamentals, remember the millions of regular people who lost everything in 2000 when the dot-com dream turned into a nightmare. history does not repeat, but it rhymes, and the rhyme of the dot-com bubble is still playing in markets around the world right now. If this deep dive into the dot-com bubble explained simply and the unfair way it played out fired you up about seeing the timeless pattern of bubbles and human greed, then do me a favor right now. Smash that like button to let the algorithm know this conversation matters. Share this video with every friend and family member who needs to understand why history keeps repeating the same painful lesson, and let us keep exposing what they do not want you to see. I will catch you in the next one, where we break down the next hidden chapter in the history of financial madness. Until then, stay informed, stay skeptical, and remember that when prices rise faster than reason, the crash is already on its way.